Hello everyone, this is Christ Plug again. And this is part 2. So this video is gonna show a couple of things as I talk. This is also just to take your vision off me for a sec and give you something a little bit more interesting to look at. So, one thing being this. So, we're gonna get into two things. One, what I'm about to do now, people would look at people would look at this in the video games and say, "Oh, you're violent, or you have a violent nature because you play these types of games." Christians are most definitely infamous for looking at entertainment and media and saying that that's sinful, and saying that basically you're going to go to hell because you consume this type of media. And I doubt that, because one, we don't even have the abilities I'm about to display here, and two, the abilities I'm about to display are without consequence because this is a video game. And three, even if there was consequence, if I knew there was consequence, do you think that any of us would do this? So, this is gonna, and I've been showing gameplay in the last video and this video to prove a point. Aside from actually going to Bible verses, I kind of want to prove a point just from a logic standpoint. Because Christians already can see scripture. The only problem is they translate it wrong. They always seem to miss the mark when it comes to scripture. So, if any Christians come by and watch this, I hope they can understand exactly where I'm coming from a logic standpoint. Not that they think logically when it comes to scripture even. But anyways, on to the abilities that they would say is sinful and that I'm going to hell for this. Power up. So, if you're faint-hearted, just bear with me on this. I know that hearing the truth and hearing what I have to say is more important than seeing what you're about to see. So, now tell me, after seeing what I'm about to do, do you think that I would do this if there was consequence? And first of all, you all know this is a video game. But second of all, if this was real life, do you think I'd actually do this with my power? If I had this? If any of us had this ability, do you think we'd do this? And then I'll draw a real life comparison in a second. So, do you think I'd really be doing this if this had consequence in real life? Just completely murking people? Completely missing the mark? If missing the mark with this type of power had consequence, do you think I'd really just do this? Just for the hell of it? I mean, this is a video game, so hell yeah, I do this all the time. But that's because it has no consequence. But not necessarily I don't do this all the time, necessarily. Not necessarily this itself. Mainly I just run around. Like this. So mainly I just run around. But anyways, I'm gonna draw a real life comparison now before the mood sets. But anyways, my thing is this. The real life comparison is this. People die every day by what some people call freak accidents. By what some people call um senseless acts of violence, which yes they are senseless acts of violence, but if there was if there was no cause for anything, like don't get me wrong, there are people missing the mark having senseless acts of violence happen every day. My thing is this, that things like this is not new. And do you really think that, like, say if I play Grand Theft Auto, right? Say I play Grand Theft Auto. Do you really think that me playing Grand Theft Auto is going to make me like, oh, I'm going to become a shooter. I'm going to be like, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not going to do any of that stupid shit. Nah. Do you really think that if I was like, in this game, this is a sequel to the first game. So do you really think, like, to get these powers, do you think I'd really just become a scientist? Like, if you're a fan of this game and you follow the storyline, do you really think I'm gonna become a scientist, smash a vial on the floor, get shot up, fall on the said vial, and then the old me die, and then basically I am a whole ass virus? Do you think I'm really gonna just do that? First of all, that don't follow logic. And if you don't know what I'm talking about concerning this game, then look up the lore if you want to in your spare time. But do you really think I'm gonna be that stupid to try to die with a vial of something that doesn't even do this logically? That doesn't give you this type of power. Do you really think I'm gonna do that? Now, of course, my Grand Theft Auto analogy was way more accurate. But I'm just saying, like, even Christians and anybody else that, excuse me, I'm just saying Christians and many other people could take the blame for, like, people just, like, not enjoying shit because they think it's sinful. But I drew the unrealistic comparison and the realistic comparison for this reason. One's more realistic and one's more likely. The other is highly unlikely. Yet both are looked at as equally as if they could happen, in a sense that they're looked at equally in a negative light. So, here's my thing, really. You want to know what my thing is? I know the difference between a game and real life. I know the difference between what I could do to a person and what I could do to an NPC just walking in the video game, just taking a walk in a video game. I know the difference between a living, breathing person and a machine that's meant for purely entertainment, practically. So, yeah, I know the difference between all that, and many people aside from Christians can take credit for, like, smashing video games, especially for young audience, young people, making them think that, oh my god, my son's gonna turn into a shooter, oh my god, my daughter's gonna turn into this and that, oh my god, this, that, and the fourth. When really, it's more likely that you're gonna get your kid to become a shooter by abusing them than giving them video games. It's more likely that your kid's gonna become a killer by neglecting them rather than a fucking video game. So, yeah. This is BS that even, like, churches will play along with this. And they will completely just, they will run faster with this than I am running now. But my whole thing is this, right? It's only a game. And if we had this power, we wouldn't use it just because we could. But if a man or a woman does use this power because we could, then, like, us and a member of the body of Christ, we know that that person was predestined to miss the mark. That this person was ultimately predestined to miss the mark. Ultimately predestined. Every part of their life was led up to that point of shooting. Not shooting people, but just becoming a shooter in general. Or just becoming a criminal in general. Every detail played into that. We often hear of people who've been neglected as kids or been abused as kids and they become shooters or killers and shit like that. Only thing is, like, I'm not a killer. I will defend myself if confronted, but by all means, I will use non-lethal force if I had to defend my life, and I'll only use lethal force if necessary, if absolutely pushed. But my point is, in showing you this video game, is that the most outlandish shit that can't even happen is looked down on. And this isn't just for, like, supporting video games. This isn't for that. This is just to show you what a Christian will look down on. I mean, most of the time I just run around and shit and do parkour in this game. I do one simple slip up, accidentally press the wrong button. Even if they know what the game is and what it does, even if they saw that post like just then, they would just look at that and be like, no, you're going to hell or some shit like that. Unless you delete this game, throw away your PlayStation, shit like that. So, my thing is, like, would I love to have this power? Hell yes. Would there have to be some certain conditions to let me would there have to be certain conditions to where I would want to use this power? Hell yes. Because I'm not just gonna, okay, for example, I'm not just gonna do this shit. I'm not just gonna do this shit and there'll be nobody that, and like, I'm not just gonna do that shit and it be unwarranted. And I'm not gonna just do this shit and it'd be unwarranted. I'd like, if I had this power, right? There'd be certain conditions that it would have to be for me to want to even do this. And of course it had to be like video games, like no consequences and shit. But unfortunately life is not a video game. Unfortunately life is shitty and it sucks. It's not exciting. It's vanity. We are subject to vanity. But my point is, that's just me. But my point is, just for me, this is the power that this is what I would do if there was like no strings attached and like da. But not that I'd want to miss the mark. It's just that I don't know what to say. But my point is, I know it's morally wrong to kill people, and I'm not gonna kill people. Nobody in their right mind would. But if it's in a video game in a completely made up world, well, practically this is you playing, but let's just say that this is you. You're the character. You're in a completely different, you're basically pixels on a screen. So what the fuck? Like, are you really out here killing real life people? And like every NPC you kill in this game, you're killing a real person? Come on now. But yeah, I brought this up because like Christians will like say some shit about this. And yeah, I could make another video on this. You let me know. And as a matter of fact, I might just do this more often, but less often at the same time. So this has been Christ Plug, just talking about how absurd the Christian and pretty much the world logic is. See ya.